Unmuted.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jackie. Can everyone hear me? I'm going to ask that you raise your hand within the webinar. If you can hear me, yes, perfect. There's that. So the actual page that we're looking at is, can you see my screen? So that's one thing you should be able to do. There is a place for you to enter your questions. I don't have a handout, but in the chat, I do have the bit.ly for access to the slide deck. So, oh, I hear a screaming baby.
Uh-oh.
Muted. Unmuted.
All right. All right, I think we have a little bit of audio issues. So I'm going to ask one more time, if you can hear me, could you please raise your hand again in the webinar? Okay, perfect. All right, I'm going to take everybody's hand down. And just to make sure everybody knows what's going on, I am here as a presenter today. My name is Jackie, and we do have Tiffany and Doris and two people from the help desk online with us. So I'm going to be able to take questions as we go. What we really are going to concentrate on today are the pieces of PowerSchool and a little bit of PowerTeacher Gradebook and PowerTeacher Pro. So the agenda that we're going to be using is we're going to look at years and terms, we're going to look at your final grade setup, and then we're going to get into the Gradebook and look at the grade verification and report, and we're going to look at the section Readiness. Now that's in PowerTeacher Gradebook and PowerTeacher Administrator. And then we're going to talk about reports within PowerTeacher Pro and the comment verification page, the score sheet report in PT Pro, and then we'll get back into PowerSchool and look at permanently storing grades and how printing a traditional report card within PowerSchool. So we're going to kind of hit all three things today. Please feel free to ask a question within the PowerPoint. So if everyone's ready, let's kind of get this show on the road. Okay, so first we need to look at years and terms. We want to make sure that things are set up properly, and the gaps and the dates are very important. So there's two pieces that we're going to be looking at. First, we're going to look at clicking the 2017-18 year link, and then we're also going to get into the edit terms side of the house. So first of all, when you click the link for 2017-2018, the edit school year page shows, and you should see that on your screen, and it should say the name of the school year and then the abbreviation, but the important parts are the first day of school and the last day of school. And you should also be able to see the number of periods in your day and how many days in your schedule. So I'm hoping you're able to see that, make sure that is correct. And then what we're going to have to do is you could go back using your breadcrumbs, and then I want you to click Edit Terms, and we're going to verify that this is set up correctly. So this portion of the screen is set up as needed for scheduling. So that's an important piece to remember. In the years and terms, the edit terms area is scheduling terms, not necessarily when report cards are being delivered and such. So as we're looking at the bottom picture on this slide, this particular school has a year-long term set up, and it has semesters and it has quarters. And if you look at these dates, they all have to kind of work together. So my beginning of year is 8/28, and my end of year is 6/7. So make sure that semester 1 starts on 8/28 and your quarter 1 starts on 8/28. And at the end of your year, your semester 2 needs to end on 6/7 and your quarter 4 has to end on 6/7. So I think we get that picture. The other thing to remember is that there are no gaps. I'm sorry, I need to get rid of that little black area. It'll go away in a sec. Okay, so the other thing to make sure that you remember is that there are no gaps in your calendar days. So if you notice, my semester 1 ends on the 28th and semester 2 starts on the 29th. My quarter 1 ends on 10/31, my quarter 2 begins on 11/1. So I think you get that picture. Are there any questions regarding the years and terms as we're setting it up?
We don't have any questions so far, Jackie.
Cool. And I know that part of our weather issues today, there might not be everyone available to attend, so I'm definitely recording this so we can post it later on. All right, I'm going to continue on to the final grade setup. So this is a little bit different than what we were just looking at. So let me show you where to get to it. And in the final grade setup, you're going to navigate using your start page. Under setup, you're going to go to school. And within, after you get to school, you're going to click final grade setups. And we're going to make sure that this setup is what we're using for our report cards and those dates as far as exams and such are happening. So this particular picture, I still see that we have a full year. So these are full year term classes, if you want to think of it that way. Semester 1, semester 2, and any quarter courses. So if you are having a full year term, you'll notice that I have an E1, so it's kind of our buckets. I like to call them buckets. So we have an E1 bucket for our exam. We have the F1 bucket for our final reporting term grade. And then we have our quarters and our semester 1 bucket and our semester 2 bucket. So we have that for our full year. And now for semester 1, there are definite times when you have an exam and a final, actually you have a final grade for your semester, and you have a quarter 1 grade and a quarter 2 grade. So that's why all of these terms, they look like they have the same kind of things in them, labels in them, but the buckets are really for their own chunk of time. So,
Jackie, we have a question.
Oh, cool. Okay, under edit terms, if I don't have Q's set up, all I have is the year and the semesters, then I need to add them, correct? So under edit terms, that's for scheduling. So if you have quarter courses, or if you have students that are taking courses in another school that have quarter courses, then yes, you need to set up the quarters in your edit terms. You don't necessarily need them if you don't have any quarter courses. You do need to set it up as quarters in your final grade setup, because you're obviously going to administer report cards at the quarter. But for scheduling purposes, If you don't have quarters, you don't need to set them up under edit terms. I hope that makes sense. And Doris, you're welcome to chime in. Do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, no, I don't. I'm actually typing out your answer.
Oh,
it was a good explanation.
Perfect. So I believe that that's how we kind of need to distinguish between the two, between the section years and terms and then the final grade setup. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through the bottom picture on this particular slide. It's showing you examples of what now this one actually shows some trimesters. So these are the different buckets that you can create for the different types of grading terms, I guess you could call it, when we're ready to do report cards. So this little blue box has a note in it, and it says, if you're running the teacher gradebook section readiness report, and remember that's in PowerTeacher Administrator, if it says no data is found, this is definitely the first place you should go to look, is in the final grade setup. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And the other thing that I'd like to make sure that you know is that these labels, so in this trimester it says T1, T2, T3, the actual labels, T1, F1, that's what's going to show on the report card. So if you're showing that column, that is the label that will show. So when you're making these labels, kind of keep that in mind. So at the bottom one where it says week 1, week 2, it actually will show the W1 and W2. Okay, so this is kind of another picture, kind of date oriented and how things look in the final grade setup. And I've actually put in example dates here. A year-long course, it has to know when the quarters start and when the quarters end. So the important part here is looking at your semester dates and your exam dates. So the F1 bucket has to be inclusive of the first day of the quarter and the last day of the school year, but it has to include the exam date. So I'd like you to notice that in quarter 4, my quarter 4 ends on 6/6. And my exam day is from 6/7 to 6/8. So that means my F1 and my semester 2 has to include that exam. So my S2 ends on 6/8 and my F1 ends on 6/8. So that makes sure that I'm including that exam in that particular year-long course. Let's look at semester 1 in the Q1, Q2. So my semester 1 starts on 8/28. My Q1 starts on 8/28. My Q2 ends on 1/19. So as long as my S1 ends on 1/19, then anything I do within the 8/28, 1/19 will be included in the S1 average. So all of that is just talking about the year-long course. So now when we talk about just a semester-long course, if you look at the semester 1 screen in the left-hand portion of the bottom, you'll notice that my Q2 ends on January 17th, and my exam for that semester-long course starts on 1/18. But my actual semester ends on the 19th. So it goes from 8/28 to 1/19. And yes, definitely, we have a question about, will the PowerPoint be available to print? And most definitely. So the bit.ly is on under the chat, so you can get to the slides and you can download them, keep them, and print them if you'd like. So definitely available. So I'm hoping that you get the picture that all of the dates are so important. You have to make sure you include the exam date within the semester or the F1. So I'm hoping that makes sense. Any questions about the dates and how they need to include the exam days? And the biggest thing here is, again, to make sure that none of these dates overlap each other. Cool. Okay. Hearing none, so carried. I'm going to continue on. Alrighty. So now that we, on the Power School side, now that we have the dates and terms kind of set up, let's take a look at what happens at the end of our term and how we process things within the PowerTeacher Gradebook. So this is the Java Gradebook that we all know is going away at the end of the school year. But definitely between now and then, we have things that we have to do. So if you're following along, you can log into your PowerTeacher, launch the PowerTeacher Gradebook, and just as a reminder, it's the Java one. And I want to make sure that you know I changed all these slides and they still look a little funny. I apologize for the view of some of these words that are overwriting the pictures.
Hey, Jackie,
Yeah.
you do have one question, the exam dates.
Okay.
If they don't use them and only use quarter dates need to be included for semester and final dates, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So if you don't have an exam date and you don't have exams, then you only need to use the quarters and you don't need to use the E dates at all. You are definitely correct. It's a very good question. Okay. So for my PowerTeacher Gradebook folks, I'm going to go through that and then I'll come back, Michelle, with your Gradebook question. How do we log into PowerTeacher Gradebook? So I'm going to get to that in just a second. Let me get through this page. Actually, I probably should answer that now. So logging into the Gradebook, it depends. If you are a data manager, then what you will be using is PowerTeacher Administrator. And that's down on the left-hand side of the navigation page, but you have to have the rights and the permissions to get into PowerTeacher Gradebook and to view a teacher's gradebook. I hope that makes sense. This is kind of what the teachers see on their side. So it's not more of what a data manager sees. This is more of what a teacher sees. So this particular page is a teacher's gradebook, and what do they do when they want to finish their term. So on their home page, if you can see underneath the word score sheet, and I'm going to kind of point to it here, the Q1 is in process. So that's the place where we're going to be playing right now. If you want to look at the final grades, there is a final grade tab, and you can look at the final grade tab. When you do that for a particular person, you can put in here the grade. You can override it if you need to. You can put in your comments. And this picture actually shows you how to put in the comments from the comment bank to include this in the final grade for this particular person's. So that's how they're going to look at the score, whether they need to manually override it or put in a comment. So this is where the teachers are actually going to check their grades, check their comments, and add these comments. Let me see, Michelle. I'm a data manager. Pull that up, but I do not have passwords for that, so we'll check with the LEA during our meeting. Perfect. That will definitely help you, Michelle. Perfect. Okay. So, are you going to cover this in the new gradebook? Yes, I'm going to be getting to the PowerTeacher Pro next. So yeah, just kind of hang in with me. We'll get to both sides of the two different gradebooks. All right. So I'm still in PowerTeacher Gradebook. What teachers can do to verify their term grades. So a few different things here. There's numbers 1, 2, and 3. So first of all, you're going to select the course that you're going to verify and say you're done with your grades for. So you're going to select the course, and then you're going to select the reporting term, so whatever one is just ending, and then you're going to click the Q1 in progress. So you're going to click that box. So that will take you to the area where you can say, I'm done with my grades. What I want to get into just a little bit is the little box that says thinking ahead. So if you're going to be printing a traditional report card, the report card setup only lets you designate one term to pull comments from. So as an example, Q1. So it's good practice to choose the smallest term that is in all the lines on the final grade setup. So if this report card is a full year course, but you have a Q1 in the final grade setup, and you're going to put in comments in the Q1, make sure that you're printing the Q1 comments. And we'll get to that when we get down to those screenshots and you can see them a little bit better. This is kind of a, keep this in mind when you're verifying your grades and verifying your comments. So teachers' comments for semester 1 store term could include comments from Q1 and Q2 and the E1. So make sure that we have all of our comments chosen and we set them in the Q2 if you're doing that for quarter 2. That's kind of a lot of look. It's a lot easier if you see it on the screen, which will be showing you in just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go back one screen. I think I am. And so after you click the Q1 in progress, that's the last button that we chose, then this screen is going to come up, this window, and you're able to check the final grades completed box. And then the next thing, number 5, says add a comment in here. So this comment is kind of twofold. It's to let the office staff know, because we'll be able to see those comments. You'll be able to see those comments to let them know that, yeah, I actually came in here and I checked that box and my grades are really good to go. So if the teachers add some kind of comment in there, and it could be as little as just one word, just verified, or whatever your LEA chooses to use as a key phrase or something. It's good to put something in that comment field. And then number 6 says to click OK. And what happens after you do number 6 is oh my gosh, the little black line. Don't like that black line. Go away. Okay, gone. So I'm not going to put my cursor there because I'll get the black line again. But number 7 says, the term in progress bar will now turn green and it will say grades are complete. So that's how the teacher knows that they've actually checked that box and they've said okay. And then from there going forward, we're able to see how it looks from the PowerTeacher administrator side. Any questions about how the teachers get to that final grade complete box? Okay, I'm going forward. Okay, there also is a report that can be run in PowerTeacher Gradebook. So this report can be run by teachers after they've entered their grades, entered their comments, and they've done that verification. So you will see that checkbox says grades are complete, and there's my little green checkbox. To run the report, there is a reports icon along the top tabs. If you don't see this reports icon, just make your browser bigger, because sometimes it's not shown in a smaller area of your screen. So make sure that you expand that window. Now, once the report is run, it should be reviewed. The teachers can sign it and submit it to the person responsible, data manager, or some kind of admin at the office, so that we know that the teachers have actually done it, they've printed it, and we continue on. We can actually file it. Now that is an LEA decision, but a best practice would be to print the report, sign it, and hand it in. So this is where we actually run it and see it. So I've clicked on the reports icon, and the one that we're going to be looking at is called Final Grade and Comment Verification. So you're going to double click on that link. So right now I'm still in PowerTeacher Gradebook as a teacher under the reports. So this is what the screen looks like after you double click that report title. You're going to have to pick and choose items based on what you want to see in the report. So that first picture says you can choose whether you want it to be in a PDF format or you're going to export it. PDF is usually the way to go. You can select a class, so I can either just do the selected class that I have, or I can click the box that says active classes, and it will print for all of your classes. But if you only have the grades done for one class at a time, then I would run this for one class at a time. So your students enrolled button, so you can choose it for all of your kids or just for selected groups. How you want the student name to be shown on the report, I can use the name or I can use the student number, and you can change the sort if you're doing so. What do you want to include? The course grade or additional grades as well. So underneath the course grade, I'm choosing to print points, grade, percent, and comment. So you don't need all of these if you don't choose to show them. The grade is the actual grade for the course. Whether the grade is a numeric or an alpha, it's still the grade. So if you choose the grade and it's a numeric grade, and you choose to the percent as well, these two, grade and percent, will be the same, because the numeric grade will be the same as the percentage. So if you do numeric grading, then you won't need to include both of these checkboxes, but that is a teacher's preference. Points is the number of points for all of the assignments that you've created. So if you want to see all those points, then you can include the points on the report. And obviously, you can include the comments here as well. You're going to choose what reporting term that you're going to print it for. So if you're just doing quarter one, choose just Q1. And the next picture on the left hand side here is actually a continuation on of the screen. So you want to make sure that if you want to put include something at the top or at the bottom, you can choose to do that. That is a teacher preference. You can include a signature line, and then you're going to be able to click Run Report. So I think we do have a question. If I run this report now, will it change anything in my gradebook? Or is this just information only? And can it be run multiple times? So those are great questions. So yes, when you run this report, it is strictly informational. The thing that is the clicker or the trigger is the fact that you have the final grade check mark box done. So what that means is as soon as you make that check mark done, that tells the office staff that those classes are ready to print report cards. So whatever your grade book is, whatever state that it's in, when the data manager or admin, whoever runs it, will pull the report card based on what your current gradebook status is, not what is in this report at the time that you run it. You can run this as many times as you want. It will choose the latest and greatest. So if you run it today and then you make changes, some kid handed in some reports later on or grades and the teacher has adjusted their grade, this report can get run again. So it is a static data pull whenever you run the report. So you can run it as many times as you want. What is kind of what people have been doing in the past is that the administration says we want you to run it because we want you to hand it in so that we know that you've done it and we know what your grades are at the time you said they were ready. So that's just kind of a way for the admins to know what your gradebook looked like when you said it was ready, and in case something has changed after the fact when the report cards actually got run. So that's just kind of checks and balances. There was another
Jackie,
question.
there was.
Yeah, I think I missed
I was going to
one.
tell you there was another.
Do we have to verify the grades? We are a small school and the teachers let me know when they have put their grades in. And Jackie, you do not have to do that. This is something that helps you as the admin or the person responsible to let you know when they're ready. But if you don't want to make that a process in your school, then you definitely don't have to. This is not a requirement for getting report cards run. But it's good for checks and balances. Okay. Any more questions before I continue on? All right, cool. So just kind of as a summary, there's a couple pages to this, and this is strictly for PowerTeacher Gradebook. So my PT Pro folks, hang on. You're going to select the class, click the Reports tab, double-click the Final Grade and Comment Verification Report. When the window appears, check all of the settings that you like. You could use all the default settings if you like. Click the Run Report button. When it does appear, you can open it or save it, or both. Open it and then save it. If you want to run this for multiple classes, you're going to open the report again. run it again for another class. Definitely number 6 has a little note in it. So if you're going to open the report and click OK, it's going to display based on whatever you entered. The report should open in a new tab of whatever browser you're using. So it will help you that so you don't lose where you are. So it should open in another tab of the browser that you're in. Okay, so the next page is kind of a continuation of the summary. It's kind of showing you how to save that report. So you can click the Save Report option, and if you click OK to that, you need to give it a name. So you're going to enter a name in the Save As field, and then choose where you want to save it to. Usually the desktop is the default setting, so if you have a documents folder or a place you want to keep it online, definitely choose where you want it to go and click Save. And then you're going to have to click OK. And in order to see it, letter G at the bottom says find where it is that you stored that report, and you can click it to open it from there. So I do see that we do have another question, and I know it is a ton of information here for all you newbies. Did I understand the beginning of this? This is what we will not have after this year, correct? I'm assuming PowerTeacher Pro will be the steps we follow for now on. So Michelle, I'm not sure what place you are, but only cohort 1 folks, the people that were early adopters, are using PowerTeacher Pro this year. Everyone else is using PowerTeacher Gradebook up until the end of the school year. So your answer is yes, you will not have it going forward. You will still need to use this till the end of the year, but then starting in the 18-19 school year, everyone will be doing PowerTeacher Pro. If you're already using PowerTeacher Pro, then none of this stuff I've been telling you will apply to you. And we're going to talk about PowerTeacher Pro next, which actually has a lot of different pieces to it. So this is kind of just a picture of what the report looks like, whether you're going to save it, print it, or email it. And just as a reminder, if you are emailing it, you have to password protect it because it is confidential information. So it's just kind of a quick, now that is based on the options that I chose. So in this particular sample, we chose to show the points and the final grade and the percentage. That's why you see all of those columns as well as the comment. Okay, I'm almost done with PowerTeacher Gradebook. So this is how to run the section readiness report. So this is no longer teacher. So I'm moving from the teacher side to the admin side of what we need to do. So this section readiness is for PowerTeacher Gradebook. And in order to find it, you need to go to your PowerSchool start page. You're going down at the bottom under applications, and you need to choose PT Administrator. And then from there, you're going to click the reports icon. So you need to have, excuse me, you need to have permissions to get to the PowerTeacher Administrator area. And if you don't, talk with your LEA people, they can make sure this is going to happen for you. But this is what the page that you will see when you get to it. So I'm going to click at the bottom of my navigation page under Applications, PT Administrator. This is what the page looks like. And under the PT Administrator, you could click Reports from the left-hand side, or you can, under Reports tab, when you hover over it, you will see the Section Readiness Report. So these are the ways that you can get to Section Readiness. And the only thing this does is this is looking at all of the teachers' classes and whether or not they have checked that box that says final grades are completed. So it's looking for that green check mark. This is all this Section Readiness Report is going to do. So under this report, when I click Section Readiness, this particular picture allows you to choose the school. So obviously you're going to choose the school that you are in, how you want it to be displayed, period, day, section marked as completed. So that drop down, you actually can say, only show me the classes where the teachers have said it's completed. There's another piece of that drop down that says, show me the section marked as incomplete. Only show me the teachers that have not completed that green check mark. Or there's actually a third one that says both. So you can show a list of all of the classes by teacher and whether or not they have completed or not completed that green check mark. So you have those options under section marked as in that drop down. Obviously choose the current school year and which reporting term you are running this section readiness for. So you're going to be choosing Q1 or Q2. Make sure, a lot of people just do check section marked as both, so they have a quick picture of if a teacher has done all of her classes except one, it's a little bit easier to see everything in one area. Some people choose just to show me the ones that are not complete so that I can just go and talk to those teachers to get them to get it done. So this too can be run multiple times. This little note on it says it's sorted by teacher name, and then from within the teacher by course, and then from within the course by term. If the term column appears, the term column will only appear if you have more than one term selected. So if you're going to do it for F1, you may see the Q1, Q2 in there as well. If you have more than one school that you have selected, which shouldn't be, if an LEA person is doing this, they may want to do it for multiple schools. It can be separated by school. And then you're going to click the Run Report icon on the right. This is kind of what it looks like. So in this particular example, it's showing me the school, the reporting term, the teacher. So this Michael Abram, he has 2 classes. He has U.S. History and he has Current Affairs. So it's showing me the period and the day that it meets, the expression. It's showing me the course code. It's showing me the section, and then the verified status. And if they did verify it, it will show me the date. So this is telling me that all of these teachers and all of these classes have not verified that their grades were done. They did not do that green check mark piece. When you're looking at this report, you have the ability to resort the columns. So these are all sortable. You can click on any of those headings. You can email teachers that are appearing on the report by clicking email. You can export all of the results. That is an option at the bottom. So make sure that when you're doing the email, that obviously the teachers have email addresses there You can edit that list, make sure you use commas to separate the emails, and then send email to the report to the email addresses that are listed. So a good thing, a lot of people will export it and then play with it in Excel, but you can also do that here as the result. I'm going to ask you to hold up 1 sec. I do have, not sure how the chat works in webinar. Can you look at those dates again on final grade setup? Okay, so yes, so if you're doing a chat, let's go back to how the webinar thing works. So if you have a question, there is the question, obviously, area. There is also a chat area where if you put in a message and you say to the entire audience, a chat will show to everyone. That is one way for us organizers to talk as well as the participants. So the chat works a little bit differently. The question is, can we go back and look at dates again on the final grade setup? And I will do that, and I'll do that in between the PowerTeacher Gradebook and the PowerTeacher Pro steps. It'll kind of be a good separation thing when we're looking in between the two software products. So I will get that for sure. So at this point in time, I think I've finished everything from the PowerTeacher Gradebook side. So before we jump in, I've been asked to go back to the dates again on the final grade setup. So I'm going to jump back there. I'm going to look at this particular page, and I'm not sure if this is the one she wants to look at or if it's this that she wants to look at. I'm going to go to the dates. So, yes.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay, I'll try to. I don't know how good this microphone works,
That's
but
okay.
I was asking the question about the Q4 date, end date on the year long.
Okay.
And the exam date. So I'm sorry, the semester 2 on the year long ends on June 8th. Is that, should we include the E1 exam dates in that? Or should the E1 exam be separate?
So it all depends on how your semester 2 average. So let me just repeat the question for those of that may not be able to hear her. So the question is, looking at the year-long course, so I'm going to use my mouse and kind of show you where I'm looking. So in this particular box area, the Q3, Q4 under year-long, it all depends on what you want your semester 2 average to include. If your semester 2 average is to include an exam, then that S2 end date has to be inclusive of the E1 bucket. That's why I even made my S2 end on June 8th, because that does include my E1. Does that make sense?
Yes, and if the exam is going to be weighted differently, then you would not include it, correct? You would stop the semester 2 average end date at June the 6th.
Yes. Well, it depends. I mean, your E1 can be weighted how it wants, but it all depends on how it is set up in the grade books. So if you want the S2 to include the exam grade, then that date always has to be inclusive of that date.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Do I need more information? on the dates. Okay, we do have one. We had to end our term earlier in order to include the E1. We only have 8th grade that uses E1 for our Math 1. Okay, so what that tells me is you ended your term, so let's say S2, you ended it on 6/7, according to these dates here. This is just an example. So 6/7, or actually 6/6 really, then S2 would never include that exam grade. The other option is you can include the exam and just not use it for your other students. So it should be that if the exam grade is not used, it's not calculated and it doesn't count against the student. But you do need to create it for those 8th graders. So, Jackie, did it work for you closing your term earlier? Ended our term earlier in order to include the E1. I guess that means later, right? Not earlier. You said you had to end your term earlier. You needed to end your term later to include the E1, correct? I'll kind of give you a couple seconds to type that. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. All right. I'll let Jackie think about that for a minute. So I'm thinking you had to end your term later to include that E1. Any other questions on the dates? I can definitely continue and come back to it if we need to. All right, let's jump to PowerTeacher Pro. Okay, unfortunately, there's not a lot here at this point in time. If you are a teacher, you're going to log into PowerTeacher. They see their start page, and they should have PowerTeacher Pro links either underneath each class or in the upper corner. So they're going to be able to click the PowerTeacher Pro link. If you guys are using PowerTeacher Pro, all those teachers will have that link. Once they get into PowerTeacher Pro, the reports are not quite up to snuff yet in our version, in version 10. So let me talk about reporting in general in PowerTeacher Pro. So some of the reports that you used to use in the Gradebook have been consolidated in Pro, and they're labeled a little bit differently. So we don't have an attendance grid report, but in PowerTeacher Pro, you can use the student roster in place of that attendance grid. We don't have a missing assignments report, but the teachers can run the individual student report or the multi-function assignment report to find those missing assignments. Another report, another page, I shouldn't call it a report, it's a comment verification screen. It isn't really a report. It's available from the grading charm, the A+ charm, and we can look at that and use that as a way of having the teachers print it, sign it, and hand it in to let them know their grades are done. Because we do not have a section readiness report yet in version 10 in PowerTeacher Pro. So the last one is talking about the PowerTeacher Gradebook multi-section and standards report. all of those have been integrated into the PowerTeacher Pro individual student report. And that's in version 11. Okay, we do have a question. Does the data manager go into PT Pro admin? Should we all have access to this or not? I do not at this time. Okay, so there really, in version 10, there really is not something called PowerTeacher Pro admin. It's not like it was under applications where it said PT administrator. That is not how PowerTeacher Pro kind of works. So you do need, as a data manager, you probably need access to the PowerTeacher Pro settings. And those settings is kind of where admin stuff kind of happens. And that is found within PowerSchool itself. So as a data manager, you already have access to those PowerTeacher Pro setting pieces. As far as viewing a teacher's gradebook like you did in PTG, you don't need to get into PT Administrator to get to the gradebook to view it. That is in PowerTeacher Pro, that is done by a special security role that's created by the LEAs or maybe by you as a data manager. So in order for data managers and school administrators to view a gradebook in PowerTeacher Pro, you only need to have that security role that talks about giving you view-only access to PowerTeacher Pro gradebooks. So I understand, I can see the PT Pro. If I pull up a teacher's schedule, guessing this is where I can see what you are sharing. Exactly correct. If you want to view a teacher's gradebook, you would go under your particular teacher's schedule, and you too should see a PowerTeacher Pro link. And that should take you into the PowerTeacher Pro gradebook of a particular teacher. As a data manager, I have trouble with report cards because there is not a teacher verification button in PT Pro. Any suggestions? So yeah, there is not a teacher verification button in PT Pro. So what we're going to be using is a couple different options, and they'll be in the next couple slides. So we are going to talk about what can you do if you're using PowerTeacher Pro when it comes to the end of the term. So this particular page that I'm showing you right now is kind of an all-around reporting piece in PowerTeacher Pro versus PTG. So this is a good slide to either download and keep in place or take a picture of or save it or something, because it kind of helps you with the crosswalk, what is used in Pro and how it looked like in the gradebook. So that's a good page to have. But as I continue on to the next page, you will see different options of what you can do as a data manager. So like I said, in version 10, there's not a place for teachers to check that their grades are completed. We're working on that. They're working on that, I should say. So the following options we have, there's a couple different ones. One is using the comment verification. It's actually a page that is displayed that you can then, the teachers can then print, sign, and hand in. Or they can actually print a score sheet that can get printed and signed and handed in. So I'm going to show you both of those and show you what the difference is and what may be the goods and pros and cons of each. So there really isn't anything there yet. So I'm going to talk about version 11 when we're done with all of this. So let's pretend that you're going to use the comment verification page. You've already communicated to your teachers that you want them to bring up the comment verification in their gradebook and to print it and sign it and hand it in. So this is one option they could have. So to do that, in PowerTeacher Pro, so this is what it looks like when you're looking at a teacher's gradebook, or this is what a teacher sees when they are logged in. Down the left-hand side, those are those charms, and you can click on the A+ grading charm, and within that charm, you should see under the grades area a comment verification. And the next page will show us exactly what that grade comment verification looks like. So right now it's showing me you have to pick what term that you're looking at the comment verification for. So right now I was just looking at F1, but you can look at just Q1 or Q2 if you want. When you see this screen, see that it's really not a report. So if you're looking at this, it's kind of a view only, and I'm looking at it from an administrator's point of view. So because I'm looking at it, I will get this little box that says read only view in that little tan color area. So I'm getting that because I'm looking at this grade book as a view only person. And right now I'm looking at the class NC Math 1 Honors. If you want to print this, you're looking at this page, you're going to choose Control P on the PC or the Command P if you're on a Mac. And this will allow you to print, and then they will print it, sign it, and hand it in. So let me just see. All right, let me go back one. So this is the comment verification area. They can use that. We do have a couple comments and questions that I'm going to get to before I continue on. So the question is, should we let the teachers print their own report cards? Well, I guess that is an option. That isn't definitely an LEA decision. I tend to say no, that is just coming from a Jackie Utter point of view. That is not anything that DPI is saying, yes, you should, no, you shouldn't. I liked, as a data manager, as an administrator, I liked to print them because I would tell my staff that today I'm printing report cards. So I know the date and the time. So I know when that date of demarcation is. So I know that whatever the grades are at that point in time is when what that report card is going to show. If you start letting teachers print their own report cards, then it's not, you don't have a lot of control at that point. But that is my own opinion, and you guys can choose that as an LEA, have that as a discussion point at the LEA level. So another question is, or statement, the problem I had last time was the grades are not matching. It is like PT Pro is not talking to my program PowerSchool. Okay, so if the grades are not matching, it probably is because teachers are making changes in PT Pro after you, let's see. So if you gave them a deadline of, let's just say, January or December 31st, and then you started your report card print process, but you're a large school, so if you're printing just one grade level at a time, the other grade levels that I have not printed yet, if those teachers have gone in and made changes, then it's not going to match what they see in PowerTeacher Pro because you're printing it and then they're making changes. Does that kind of make sense? There really is not a way to lock the gradebook. You can't say, okay, my teachers, you are done. I'm going to print report cards. I'm locking your gradebook until I have it done. So you really just have to work on the communication piece at this point in time. I hope that kind of makes sense. Okay. The other option is that you can use a score sheet report to have the teachers print, sign, and hand in. So, Wanda, this may help you a little bit more as well, because the score sheet report, you will actually see what the grades are at the time that the teachers handed this stuff into you. And you can say to the teacher, okay, this is what is going to be stored, and this is what is going to print on the report card. So if your stuff doesn't match, you can go back to the teacher and say, you sent the score sheet report to me on this date and this time, and this is what the grades were stored as. So if it's not matching the PowerTeacher Pro, that means you've made changes after this point. So that's why the score sheet sometimes is a better way than just the comment verification, because with this score sheet, you can print a lot of detail. So let's go this way. This report generates, it's a spreadsheet style, and you can choose the student grade and what assignment data you want to include. And obviously you can have it printed, signed, and handed into the office. So in order to find this, under your charms, you're going to choose the reports charm, and then you're going to click the score sheet report. There are a lot of options to choose from here on the score sheet report page. Obviously, you can give it a title. You can choose the classes if you want more than one. In this particular case, I have just the one class chosen, NC Math 1 Honors. I chose to print the student name. You can choose to print the student number, just to make it a little bit more like not generic, so you don't see the kids' names on it. That's up to you. The sort options, I can choose to sort it a specific way, or I can choose whatever the gradebook had as a preference for my sort options. Those are a lot of different pieces you can choose from there. What categories do you want to include in the report? So these are the actual categories: test, quiz, homework, classwork. You can choose one, some, or all. In this case, if I just say any category, it will include all that have assignments and grades. Choose the reporting term that you want. You can also choose, for the date range drop down, you can choose the reporting term, or you can actually put in a manual date, start date and end date. So there's a lot of different reporting options to this score sheet. But once you choose what you want to see, you're going to click Run Report at the bottom right corner. And this is an example of what one looks like. So at this point in time, when you click the Run, it automatically generates a PDF file. And it's automatically saved to your computer. So you don't have to do the save as, you don't have to do all that. But you do have to know where it automatically saves, because you're going to have to know where to find it later. So it will create a PDF file and save it to your computer. You're going to have to go to find it so they can print it and hand it in. Let's take a look at what columns of information are being shown. So right now, I'm showing the student, I am showing the grade for the F1, and so it's a 96 is my grade, and I actually also chose to show the percentage, so that's why it's showing 96 and 96%. So the first column is a grade, the second column is the percentage. And then I'm looking at all of the assignments and what the grades were in those assignments for, and this actually is a picture of an English 4 class. So obviously it could be a quite large report if you do a lot of assignments, as you might guess. So let me go back and just verify what this score sheet can do for you. I think it's a good one to print because you have a lot more information and you have something that you can go back to the teacher with, saying this is what you handed me and this is what is being stored as a final grade in PowerSchool, and that's what the report card is going to reflect. So it's kind of a good one to use. Even if you're a small school, it's still a good check and balances for you. All right, so that was the teacher side of PowerTeacher Pro. What could they do since they don't have that little checkbox yet in version 10? So they can choose to print the comment verification, the score sheet, or whatever your LEA chooses to do. Now, on the admin side or the office staff side, there is not a section readiness report in version 10. It is in version 11. So we are going to version 11 as soon as we can. We're working hard at testing it and verifying it. Right now, because there isn't one, the LEA or at the school level, you're going to have to develop your own plan on how you want to track what teachers have done. So I apologize that there isn't a section readiness report, but it is coming. It is in version 11, and we will be getting to that as soon as we can. Please don't shoot the messenger. I'm just letting you know how it is. Okay. At this point, we are done with the teacher side of things. So the teachers are done. We figured out that they're done. Now we need to store the grades. So we need to go back into our PowerSchool side of the house to make that happen. So we're going to be working in PowerSchool, and we're going to be going from the school level. So down on your navigation bar on the left under Setup, you're going to go to System. And from the System page, under the Grades panel, you're going to choose Permanently Store Grades. This particular page has a lot of information to it. So there's going to be 3 or 4 pages that we're going to be going through. So the first thing it's going to ask you is, what final grade reporting term are you going to go and ask me to find? So I'm going to say, go find my Q1 grades. So that's the bucket that we set up in our final grade setup, the Q1. And then I need to say, where do I want it to be stored in my historical? So if you're going to be doing Q1, you can do Q1, go get me Q1 and store it as a Q1. And just as a little requirement for you to know, the first character has to be a letter, and the second character, I should just say that. The first character has to be a letter. So that is a well-known, documented piece of information when you're creating the buckets in your final grade setup. The W1, W2 for your 6 weeks, the Q1, the T1, F1 kind of thing. So that's kind of the first 2 pieces. Now, the next couple lines, the next panel, the exclude, include, you should be using this stuff together. So, oh my gosh, it is Ugh. All right, I apologize. I am going to send you a different PowerPoint because my words are being overshown. Now I fixed all this stuff, but because it's in Google Slides versus PowerPoint, things look different. So if you could bear with me for just 1 second, I'm going to change out what I'm showing you, and I will make sure that you guys get a better version of this. So I'm going to show you a different version. If you could hold on 1 minute for me, please. I need to find. I apologize. Webinar. I apologize. I'm getting there. I'm almost there. No, this is not it. Ugh. I'm going to open it in straight old PowerPoint. I'm almost there. I promise. I apologize for the wait, for the slowness of me. I am going to show a different screen. All right. I'm going to show you this instead, and I apologize. At least here, all of my words aren't shown. All right, permanently stored grades. So we have the Q1 stuff. So the next couple items, exclude, include class enrollments. You need to use those pieces together. So you can exclude the students that were enrolled in a particular class after a certain date. So if you don't want your kids included in the stored grades that have only been in your class for a couple weeks, you can exclude them based on the date that you chose. Or you can also choose not to store a grade for students who drop the class before a certain date. So utilize those enrolled and drop dates as you need, if you need to. If you don't do any of that, then all of the students that you have selected will have their grades stored. Number 5, that last line that says include only enrollment records that are currently active and that were active on this date. So you also could choose that box if you wanted. You don't have to choose anything in any of those lines. If you leave all of those date fields blank, that's what the note says at the bottom, PowerSchool stores a grade for every enrollment record, including classes that students dropped during the term. Okay, we do have a couple of statements here. It says, you were talking about naming the requirements for store codes. FYI for the newbies. Per DPI, store code for final grade must be F1. Correct. So Francine, I thank you for that. So the store code for the final grade has to be an F1. Some people choose to store a Q1 grade and then go back and store it again as an F1 grade, which is why I had it set that way. But that is correct. Every grade stored in PowerSchool has to have a final grade stored using the F1 code. And then there's another statement. We use special code EX in the exam reporting term grade for students who are exempt from taking exams, as we want this to show on report cards. We have found that by entering this special code, it calculates as a 0 and drops the F1 significantly. INC does this as well when entering into a Q1 or Q2 reporting term. Any suggestions? So Amy, those are awesome questions, a great thing, especially for new people. So now we have to go back to our PTG versus PT Pro stuff. So in PTG, when you have that special code EX, you have to tell it whether it's going to count against them or not. So you have to make sure within PTG that what does EX stand for? How does it work in calculations? You can say have EX not counted in the GPA. You can have it not counted against the child. The same thing with INC, whether you want it to calculate as a 0 or you want it to not calculate at all, or to calculate at whatever number you put in there. So that's part of the grade scale stuff that we need to talk, that is part of the setup. In PowerTeacher Pro, under the grade scales, when you have the EX in your special code grade scale, again, you get to say whether it's going to be included in the assignments or whether it's only going to be included at the final grade, and whether that is going to be used in calculations or not. So you have to make sure that the special codes, whatever they are, either counts as a 0 if you want that to happen, or not count at all against the student. Amy, does that answer your questions? I think you have to look at your setup to see how those special codes are being used currently and how you can change them. Okay, so I'm still in the permanently stored grade, so I'm on the first few lines. We've gone down through the page. We are going to look at the filters. Definitely open the additional filter options. It normally shows up closed, so you open this filter by clicking that triangle. Here is where you can permanently store grades for a specific number of selected students. So if you don't come in here and put a check mark in that box where it says store grades for currently selected students, it will do it for all based on some of these other options that you're choosing. Based on if you want to do it just for a course, if you want to do it just for the students that you have as your current selection, if you want to do just a particular grade level or particular track, or you can use it date-wise. So definitely open up this additional filters. So if you don't want to store grades for every kid, definitely use this filter to make that happen. As we continue down that permanently store page, the next area is talking about what you're going to store and how you're going to store it, with credit or without credit. So the first one is the term. You're going to figure out what term based on the length of the term. So if I'm looking at quarter 2, actually I shouldn't say it that way. I'm at the semester now, and this particular picture says semester 1. I want you to store an S1, but I want you to store it with no credit, because I'm not giving credit for this class yet. If it's a full year course, I want you to store the grade, but they're not getting credit yet. And I'm not even storing a quarter 2 grade at all. This particular storing is storing it with no credit, with a 0% of that if you are doing credits. So let me tell you what that percentage means. So when you are storing it with credit, if it is a first semester class, I would say store with credit, and that percentage should say 100%, because at the end of the semester, the class is over, they should get full credit. If it is a full year course and you want to give them half of the credit at the semester, you can say under semester 1, store with credit at 50%. Does that make sense to you? 0% will store the grades but with no credit. 100% will store the grades with full credit, and you only should be doing that with your F1 store. Now, in order for you to see all of those terms above in that line, it says if you're storing grades for a term that is not in progress, you may need to display them. So a lot of times I always click show all terms yes, just so I can make sure I'm looking at all of the pieces that I could possibly store if I wanted to. So I just a lot of times just make that a yes just for my own, making sure I'm looking at the right stuff. So are there any questions regarding the permanently stored grade options, whether you're storing it with credit, without credit, or you're not storing it at all? Okay, cool. We're getting down there. We're getting closer. So now there's an option area where it says options for classes enrolled at other schools. So you can choose to store grades for classes that are enrolled at other schools. So I can choose all schools, or I can choose just this school, the school that you're at. So if a middle school student is taking a high school class, the middle school must select this option when you're storing the grades, because we have to make sure that that high school grade gets stored at all schools. So the high school needs to get that grade stored, and you have to record the school name. So choose what school you want it to show. So when you're looking at the record name, school name drop down, you have to make sure that that other school has the term ID or the terms section, terms and IDs that we have. Make sure those terms are set up at that school as well. So I kind of talked about that back in our years in terms area. So if I am a middle school and all I have are semester classes and quarter classes and year-long classes, but I have a kid taking a high school course that is a semester course, then I have to make sure I have a semester or an S1 term ID in my setup as well as at the high school where that student is taking it. So that's kind of what that term ID is talking about there. Looks like we do have another question. I'm hoping that my folks are answering questions or helping me out here. So the question is, the EX is set up with use as a final grade checked. Final grade and percent value and GPA are set at 0 and cannot be changed. Exclude AFG is checked. Okay, so you're kind of telling me all the pieces that are there, Amy. What I can do, Amy, is take a look offline. I definitely think you should put in a remedy ticket so that the folks can look at it individually there, that they'll be able to help you with that as well. But it's definitely based on the setup of that EX code, as we're going back and talking about those special codes. Okay. I think we're okay so far. Any questions about, I'm almost through my permanently stored grades page. I have a little bit more to go. These last options I want you to know that are not used in North Carolina. So the option for withholding credit, advanced potential, variable credit, and repeated course. We don't use these options. The next thing that it tells you to do is to make a print screen of this page. So we want you to do that so that you know exactly what you stored and how you stored it. So that's why they want you to make a print screen of that page. I showed you all of the different panels, but you're able to see the whole page at one fell swoop. So it's easy to make a screen print of the entire page at one time. And you can finally click.
Jackie, you have a question.
Yes, I do see a question. What is the best way to print a grade for a dual enrolled student? And where do the teachers put the EX and or INC in their Pro Gradebook and establish how it counts? Where is the setup for these special codes? Okay, lots of good questions. Doris, can we talk about dual enrolled students? She wants to know the best way to print a grade for a dual enrolled student.
Well, now I'm assuming that when they store their grades, that they do store for other schools so that it comes back to the homeschool.
Right. So I did talk about that on this other page. Let me go back one. So it's on this particular page. And so as long as you say store grades for classes enrolled at all schools, it'll get back to that high school or that other school, sorry. And make sure to record the school name of whatever you want to show where they took that course from. So I think that, so when you say print, Michelle, I was wondering whether you are talking about to print a grade. Right now I'm still talking about storing them. So we may need to wait until we get to the printing of the report cards, which I know we're already late, past our 1.5 hours, but I want to continue this. So I'm wondering if you're talking about printing or storing. Where do the teachers put the EX or INC in PT Pro? So that's a little bit of a different place because we don't use INC or EX as a final grade. So we kind of make sure that they have something other than those options in our final grade when we store them. It's my understanding that North Carolina does not allow an INC as a final grade. Okay.
Hi, Jackie, INC would be considered a failing mark if it were in there.
Right, it does, but just can you let me know if I am saying this correctly, that we are not allowed to have INC as a final grade. Is that true?
I need to look up that policy. I believe that they can carry it over for a certain period of time, but I need to look up that policy. May have changed. I am old. It's been around a while.
You are, oh, you are not. Okay, but you do it, but you have been around a while. Okay. Thank you for that, Doris. So we'll talk about printing in a minute, but we can store grades for students that have taken classes at other places. Okay, so this particular screen is talking about the F1. So Francine, I'm getting back to our F1 stuff. And I'm also going to talk about A1 for eligibility. So F1, when you're ready to store your F1, you're going to use the F1 reporting term. You're going to store it as an F1. So there's my F1 stuff. And in this particular case, I'm storing my quarter 2. So I'm going to store my quarter 2 grade with credit at 100%. So if it was a quarter course, they would get 100% credit for it along with the grade. Make sense? You also have to go back and do your A1. So you probably have to do this permanently store grades function twice. One for your F1 and one for your A1. So we're storing them in 2 different buckets, you might say, in historical. So then I'm going to go into permanently store grades again, and I'm going to use my F1 grade, but I'm going to store it into A1 in historical. And you're going to store with no credit on the final for the ones when you're going to A1. So you're going to store with no credit on final terms that are used in athletic eligibility. That's the A1. On year-long courses, you're going to store S1 to A1. So it all depends on what term you're in and how you're going to store it. So you could choose the Q1 and you're saving it to historical F1. Then you've got to go back in and do your F1 and store it to A1. Okay, we do have some more questions about storing grades. We always put store grades for classes enrolled at this school, only which I can look at changing for selected students. Okay, so you're talking about storing grades. You always use enrolled at this school only. So that's fine, because then you're only looking at your kids that are enrolled at your school. That's a fine. That's fine. That's perfect. If you have students that are enrolled in other schools, is where those other pieces come into play. We use the EX special code in the exam reporting term, not the F1. We are hoping to use INC and F1 for Math 2 and Math 3 since the exam grades are coming back late. I think we need to look at that whole thing, especially.
Jackie, I'm trying to find state board policy on that, because I think that may be a state board policy. So let us do some checking into that. Perfect. And get back to everyone.
That's perfect. Thank you, Doris. I'm hoping that everyone heard that Doris is going to look into researching the board policy on the INC and such. Okay, I'm storing my grades still. Sorry. We're talking about F1 and then going back in and doing the stored grades again to store it into A1 for academic eligibility. I think we finally have stored our grades. It took a little bit, and that's just fine. That's fine. So now let's talk about reviewing the actual printing of the report card. So we're still in PowerSchool. We're on the PowerSchool side, on the admin side. And this is where you can get at it to get to it. You're going to go to your start page. On the left-hand side on the navigation bar, under reports, you can either click system reports or you can say state reports. Either one will get you to the picture at the bottom. And when you get to the reporting page, you're going to choose NCDPI Reports tab. And when you click the NCDPI Reports tab, there's where you'll find your traditional report card and your standards-based report card. So I'm looking at the traditional report card. You're going to choose what students you want to choose to print for. So if you're going to do it by grade level, then you'll have a selected students already as a selection, or you can choose to run all of your students that are enrolled in your school. So that's why those numbers are different based on what your selection is. And your sort order, if you want to sort it by last name or by grade level or by homeroom, this is for printed. And if you want to include a signature line for the principal and or the parent, those are your options. So one more thing about the sort by homeroom. I want you to make sure that you realize that the homeroom field it is looking at is from a field on the student's modify info page. That is the homeroom field that it is looking at. It is not pulled from the homeroom course sections that have been set up as a section. So on your start page, if you do a search, home_room equals Johnson 203, then you'll get only kids in that homeroom. And that field is found on the modify info page. So that's all about that sort order of homeroom that you see. Okay, I'm still on the reporting options of the report card print. This is where the first thing, actually it's number 5, you choose the teacher comment term. So this is where you have to choose a term of where it's going to grab the comments from. So whether it's Q1, Q2, F1, whatever term you want to go grab the comments from. The absences as of date, to print the number of absences on this report card. The school message, whatever you want to print on every report card, you can use HTML, as you can see there. It is using the page break and the different HTML codes within that message. The page layout, I believe we use the portrait. It depends if you're using standards and it's all that kind of information. You have the ability to use portrait versus landscape. The number of grade columns. So based on what number you choose here will determine how many column rows that you see below it. So in this particular picture, I chose 5 grade columns. So then I have to choose, okay, what information do I want to see on those columns? So I want to show my quarter 1 grade, my quarter 2 grade, quarter 3, quarter 4, and I want to show my exam grade. So those are the columns that will be printed on each report card. You have the option of selecting a box where it says hide courses with no grades that are displayed. You can choose to do that. Sometimes people don't do that so they can see where the holes are. Sometimes you have to see it on the report card to see where a teacher has not done their grades for some particular reason, or they didn't get stored for a particular reason if there was a glitch in the stored grade process. So you can choose to check that box or not. And if you want to choose a grade legend to print on the report card, and then pretty much those are your options that you have available to you. The little note on that page before you hit that submit says the store code values don't show up until you have stored grades. So in the column drop down, my column 1, column 2s, I will not see those values if there isn't a stored grade for those values. So that's why if I'm only in quarter 2 of my school year, I won't see a Q3 to Q4 to print because I don't have stored grades for quarter 3 and quarter 4 yet. So that's kind of what that note is talking about. And then finally at the bottom, you can choose submit. Okay, so what does a sample report card look like? This is the page that it does come to your screen, and you definitely need to read all of those red instructions because it talks about the actual printing to a printer, different kinds of printers, things that you have to do to make the report card fit on the page when it's printed. It shows all the options that I chose for it to show. It shows my school message. It shows the absences as of that certain date, and it shows the course information in whatever column I so chose. My picture does not match my options. I chose 5 columns, but I don't have the correct grades to show you in that picture. But it is showing a quarter 1 grade. And from here, obviously they will get printed to a report card. This is a Jackie thing. It's not anything that DPI is telling you, but I have found that also saving these report cards to a PDF file is good to have just as a another way to have it kept, and you know what was printed at the time that at the date and the time, so you have the date and time stamp and a copy of all those report cards. I do have a question, and is there a way not to show absences? Unfortunately, that report card is set that way. That is how the North Carolina report card was written. So there is no way I can not show them at this point. You can choose a date that is outside the range, so it will always show a 0, and then tell your parents some kind of communication in the school message, that absences are not shown here, and that's why you see zeros or something to that effect, but it does show absences. Okay, we do have another question. We are a daily and meeting attendance charter school. Cumulative attendance absences at the bottom of the report card shows as if the student was absent pretty much for the entire term. The course absences are correct, but the cumulative is not. How do I correct that and or exclude? Okay. We can't exclude it because it's there. If you are a meeting attendance, that's why your course attendance absences are correct. If you're daily as well, you have to make sure that the calculation of what course absence is, what does it mean, how many minutes do you have to be available to make you present for the day or absent for the day. So you have to make sure that that daily absent is calculating correctly in order to get that to print. But if this is a high school report card and you are a meeting school for those classes, you will see the correct absences at the course level and not at the cumulative at the bottom. So you can only be one as far as how the teachers take that attendance, either meeting or daily. I know as a charter, when you're K-12 and you have to be both meeting for some and daily for others, it makes the report card a little tough to read. But there is no way, there is nothing to correct, and there's nothing that we can exclude at this point. Report card printing, some of problems that you may occur. You have nothing showing up. Maybe did your teachers hand enter the comments? The biggest thing here is if there's any kind of a space, whether it's at the end of a line or you hit a carriage return, all those special, they call them special characters, If that is even done for one student, you won't get report cards to show. Classes and grades will not print. So that is a biggest thing that we have at the support desk is the report cards aren't showing up. There is some kind of special character, whether in the comments or the carriage returns within the comments, that are causing issues. Another thing that happens a lot is at the charter schools. The superintendent field will not be filled in and cannot be changed or filled in with director. Report card printing on more than one page. Check your font sizes, the length of the school message or the legend. And remember, I did say that you can use HTML in the message and the legend fields. So you're going to have to check all those little pieces out, like the font size, to make sure that the report card fits.
Jackie, this
Yeah.
is LaShawn. Can I say one thing right here?
Sure.
If you are using Chrome, your browser's Chrome, you may want to switch over to Firefox to print your report cards. A lot of times the report card, the layout of your report card will push it down halfway the page if you're using Chrome. So if you find that that is happening, switch over to Firefox and print your report cards from there.
Cool.
I'm kind of like Jackie with printing and saving them as a PDF. That's a good thing to do just from a data manager point of view. It's something that I did all the time because you never know when you have to go back and refer to them.
Exactly. It's perfect. Thank you for that, LaShawn. So I'm just going to reiterate it so we make sure everyone can hear. Another report card problem that comes up is that Chrome does have some printing issues at some times. So if you're having an issue with the report cards printing halfway down a page or any kind of that kind of problem, I would switch out of Chrome and print the report cards through Firefox. So that is an option that our great support desk is helping us with. So switch from Chrome to Firefox if that and see if that helps. Okay, we are a little bit late. I'm over the hour and a half, and I apologize for that. Some of the additional information that you can see talks about years and terms setup, the final grade setup, how to store grades, and the homeroom field that is found on the Modify Info page. So these links are there. They're all found on NCSIS. And they're all found in the school information area of the PowerSchool documents. Hopefully that will help. I'm hoping everyone has a very good afternoon. If you have any problems, please enter a support desk ticket. Make sure you are the authorized person that can add the ticket to the portal, and the link is there on this last page. So a couple things just before I let you all go is, one, I want to thank all of my people that are helping me today, Tiffany and Doris and my support desk folks. But there is something that says, you mentioned that next year everyone will be using PowerTeacher Pro. What training will be available for teachers and when will it be available? So we're definitely working on a training schedule now for all of the cohort 2 folks. That means the people that did not start this past year. So that schedule is being put together right now. We're going to share it as soon as we can. We're going to have it for teachers as well as for admins. And when I say admins, I mean the people that are setting it up, not school administrators like principals and assistant principals and how they see things, but actual admin of setting up PowerTeacher Pro. So both of those training section schedules will be coming out as soon as we can. We're trying to make it be in the April timeframe. Definitely you should go, if you can, to the CCES conference, because there's a lot of PT Pro stuff happening there, and there's also a lot of scheduling stuff happening there in CCES. So definitely check that out. And we're going to get it to you as soon as we know about when the PowerTeacher Pro stuff is coming. We will make sure that training is available for teachers, as well as setting it up on the admin side. This is being recorded. I'm going to stop the recording so that I can send it out to you all. In the chat, Tiffany was very nice for us to put in the chat the link to get to the CCES information. So it's www.ncpublicsschools.org/CCES. We have a question. Will this training include data managers? Yes, it will include data managers. So it'll be data managers and LEA coordinators. It does take a team. I thank everyone for all of their help. And as soon as we get information about the board policy on using INC, we will make sure everyone gets to that as well. Everyone, have a wonderful afternoon on this snowy day. Go out and play in the snow. Talk to you soon.